as it was mentioned, it is not only about our physical health, it is the health of the whole person, physical, mental, social and emotional. Right now there is not consensus around what is exactly well-being, and maybe this is some kind of a problem, but we have some kind of agreement that well-being includes the presence of positive mood, positive emotions such as satisfaction, happiness and things like that, and absence of negative thoughts such as depression, anxiety. And unfortunately right now, because of the war, because of the COVID and things like that, the well-being of the youngster is not so good, it's very low, and the depression and anxiety right now is very big.
Thank you, Mihaela.
Hello, my name is Roxana. I work as a librarian in Romania.
Where in Romania?
Gherești, Neamț County.
So it's a village in Moldavia, Romanian part of Moldavia. Very nice place.
I love my job. I love children, teenagers, and the books, and everything they offer us. I firmly believe the librarians are very special people with endowed with many talents, and me and my colleagues transform our place in the wonderful place, warmly place. I'm sorry, I don't speak very.
You're doing wonderfully.
But Mihai and the Educap team value our works and supports with many opportunity like this, and I am very grateful. Și acum aș vrea să vorbesc în română, că am făcut suficient de
So she was telling us that she cannot speak in English, but she was saying that in English. This is pretty cool. Now she wants to switch to Romanian, but să zici și despre starea de bine, știi, apropo ce înseamnă pentru tine starea de bine.
Starea de bine personală e sănătatea celor dragi.
For me, well-being is the state of health of those that are very dear to me.
Dar totodată și faptul că la serviciu pot să plantez mici semințe.
But also the fact that in my job as a librarian I can plant like small seeds.
Dar care vor rodi în anii ce vor urma.
But even if they're small seeds, they will make a, how do you call it, a crop. They will grow in a few years.
Cum a fost proiectul Dare to Care.
How Dare to Care, we are using a lot Dare to Care because this is how we start. This is the name of the methodology, and we didn't want to confuse people that but now it's a different project, the same methodology that is financed now through a different project in regroup.
Am reușit să oferim un serviciu de care comunitatea noastră chiar avea nevoie.
Through Dare to Care regroup, we actually managed to provide a service that our community really needed.
Și totodată să simțim că lucrurile pe care le transmitem în cadrul acestor ateliere vor fi de folos pentru mai multe generații, nu doar pentru cei care participă la aceste ateliere.
And the idea is that the things that they are talking about within these groups to be useful not only for the participants but also for the whole community, because is the how do you call it, when people are talking with other people, yes, and especially in small communities, immediately you can have information transferred and so on. So this will help also for the next generations, and they will benefit.
Dacă adolescenții, tinerii înțeleg niște principii clare și concise acum și
if the teenagers and adolescents they understand some very clear principles,
le vor transmite mai departe copiilor lor
the hope is that this will be transferred also when they will have kids and so on.
Și le va îmbunătăți totodată viața.
And it will help them to have a better quality of life. I'm not sure if I'm a good translator.
Are you adding your own things? Well, thank you, Roxana. Thank you. Denisa.
Mă numesc Denisa Anduc și am 17 ani. Lucrez cu tinerii și pentru tineri de la vârsta de 12 ani.
I'm Denisa and I'm 17 years old and I'm working with the young people since I was since I was 12.
Așa, și am început tot la un grup de tineri de la bibliotecă.
I've also started from a youth group at the library, the local library.
Ulterior am fost participant la grupul de care, la proiectul de care.
Then I was part as a participant. I was part of the Dare to Care group, the regroup group.
Apoi am avut experiența de a fi facilitator și în prezent sunt director al Departamentului de Resurse Umane într-o asociație tot pentru tineri din liceul meu.
Okay, so this is a particular case with her example because she was a participant in the youth group, and then the community asked for the second group to be created because there were more teenagers that wanted, and then she asked the librarian if she could be the facilitator. So now she facilitates the second youth group there. In addition to that, she coordinates the HR team within an NGO, an association that is within her high school because she's in the 11th grade. But also tell us a bit about your state of well-being. What does it mean for you? Zine un pic de ce înseamnă pentru tine starea de bine. That was Alice's question.
Starea de bine pentru mine ar fi cumva în momentul în care seara, când mă pun în pat, știu că am făcut ceva, am făcut pe cineva fericit.
So for me, the state of well-being, it's that moment during the evening when I get back home. I'm in my room, in my bed, and I realize that I did something that is useful for somebody around me.
Dar din punctul meu de vedere, o stare sănătoasă de bine ar fi aia momentul în care și eu simt că am făcut ceva pentru mine. E un lucru pentru mine și un lucru pentru cei din jurul meu.
And in addition to that, it's also to balance it, right? So it's also to do something useful and meaningful for me, not only for the others. And if I manage to do both, then it's like closing a circle. You did not use the closing the circle, but that was the idea.
Thank you. Mihai, I would ask you the same, but I think we don't have enough time. But would you want to say something about your...
No, I'm just a translator. Okay. Let's keep it like that.
So this was the introduction, let's say, stage. Then I will be addressing questions, and whoever feels that they want to answer the question may... I hope that one of you at least will be brave enough to do it. So the second question is, for those that led youth groups, what did you notice throughout the time in your groups that had the biggest effect in improving well-being in young people? Now, I understand some of you may not have led youth groups. Is there something in your professional capacity that you saw, an element, a practice, something minor or major, that had the biggest effect to young people? So we could start with those that led the youth group, and the rest can think in something they've created, something they participated in.
I didn't, my organization did, but in my experience of working with young people in general, it's usually the things that have more effect is just like presenting very simple everyday examples. Sometimes we go back to very like theoretical examples, or very theoretical terminology, and sometimes the easiest is just to present everyday examples that they can relate to. That's when the information will go in. So keep it simple.
Okay, keep it simple.
Yeah.
And the rest, of course.
Go.
Thank you.
Denisa.
For me, I had opportunity to lead three groups organized by Pulse Foundation, and I think that they had a huge impact on our youngsters, because for me they learn more about how to recognize and respond to unhealthy, abusive, or violent situation. And we managed to raise awareness among young people why they shouldn't remain indifferent when coming up to the contact with unhealthy relationships. For me, we managed to create conditions for our youngsters to search and find information, to talk more freely about topics that they're interested in, to make conscious decisions, and of course to be much more responsible about themselves, others, the world. So after our group, the things didn't finish. I mean, some of our youngsters right now are our volunteer in our youth club to be friends. Some of the youngsters lead another groups with our support, so in the peer-to-peer approach. So I think that right now they have the power to help other youngsters, and I think that it's gonna be a huge effect about the well-being of other youngsters. So yeah,
Okay.
that's for me.
Thank you, Mihaela.
Denisa.
Am tot întrebare.
Ce a avut cel mai mare impact la starea de bine din ce ai făcut ca facilitatoare de grup?
Pentru grupul meu, adică al doilea grup,
For the group that she facilitated,
cel mai mare impact asupra stărilor de bine a fost în momentul în care eu m-am dat pe mine exemplu, sau exemple ale lor, cumva ei au venit cu exemplele lor și astfel au simțit că e un lucru mult mai uman, existent, s-au simțit în siguranță și au știut că oameni...
yes. No, the biggest thing, I mean, as she facilitated the group, she realized that giving her as an example had the biggest impact on the group dynamic and the way that they started to then talk and so on. And also when she managed to create the space for them, yes, it's yours, to actually express their own stories and experiences. That's it. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Denisa. Anyone else would like to answer the question? Yeah, of course.
Okay, I can maybe share with you an experience from a questionnaire that we organized for a group of children who are placed in residential care, alternative care. This questionnaire was created was actually created by an NGO working with United Nations Commission on the Rights of the Child for this global day of discussions of the rights of children in alternative care, which took place last year. And the know-how center facilitated the collection of opinions of the children who were placed in this particular setting. And for me it was important and it was very, very valuable to see a small shift in the perception of the children, in the way of how like their response, which was connected with the way they were approached. So at first they looked at this initiative as something that was required of them to do. So it was, they thought this was something that they were obliged to do, and this was something that just a mundane sort of activity. And then when they actually saw that we were really genuinely asking for their opinions and we wanted to hear what they thought, that this was an authentic interest and that this would really matter, and it would be what they said would be considered and put forward to those institutions on an international level. Then we saw this shift of attitude, so they started taking interest, and they, one by one, they influenced each other as well as the group, and they started thinking and really they became authentically involved in what we were trying to find out. So I think this is very, very important. I think children are very sensitive to the way we approach them as adults, and they can make the difference between the tokenism, which happens very often in such initiatives, and a genuine interest that actually will take into consideration their opinions and their advice, because they're the ones that can really give us an authentic useful, practical advice on how we should solve problems on a policy level.
Alright, thank you a lot for that insight. Just to recap what your responses, I'm just making notes here. It's to make, let's say, the topics that we're talking about that are in the youth group methodology or in our societal context, make them relatable to the youngsters. Give them examples, give them concepts that they understand and they can actually see as examples. Another way is to raise awareness for them, to give them an opportunity to search themselves, but also search in a safe environment their questions and their ambitions, and to have let's say, to find people that can also relate to in that way, and also teach them about responsibility. Another big approach I think was mentioned, it was the peer-to-peer approach that they have. In the case of Denisa, it was to give herself as an example, and this is something really good. This is a tactic used in many cases where there is some form of disarray, or the youngsters are looking for someone again relatable to them, but like a success story. And it's always nice, and this is something we also did in the refugee camp a lot, is try to motivate certain individuals to motivate other ones as well, the ones that went through the same struggle and came out of it and have let's say the thirst to teach other people and express their own stories. And of course involving them as in the decision making, in the brainstorming, getting their genuine interest. Where better, I think was mentioned also, sorry, I'm speaking too fast now again. I have to slow down. Yeah, involve them in the group, involve them in the issues that they have to face, and generally just this was also mentioned by Miha, yeah, that involving them, getting the best solutions for them is by asking them genuinely what would they want to see changed. Yeah. So moving on to the third question. So reality is grim, but we're looking for a way forward. Which do you think are the most important policies, actions, initiatives for improving youth well-being? Anything that was mentioned before, or anything that you haven't said yet, or perhaps something else that you might have in mind? So initiatives, policies, programs, methodologies that improve youth well-being.
I think that we need a huge children and youngster well-being strategy, or at least a children's strategy, so that it can set out a shared understanding of what is well-being, what children and youngsters need, what they want to be well, and as well as how government, how different NGOs, society at all can work together for their well-being. As we mentioned, it is very important to include youngster in publicity or things like that, so they have to be included in all the topics, all the things they're connected to their life. But as we mentioned earlier today, not only to give the opportunity for them to talk, but to hear them. As the example of the politics where the children ask about their exams and that they are very stressed about them. The answer was, the stress is something good, you have to study, it's not the end of the world, but for some of the children it was. I mean, it is the end of the world because there is a lot of pressure from their parents, from the schools. So for their well-being, it's the end of the world, and they had to hear that. For me also, and as Ali show his project, it is very important to create some kind of a space, safe spaces for children and youngsters, so it's gonna be a space where they can seek for help, no matter if it is some kind of a platform, hotlines, or different kind of form of safe spaces. It is very important for children, so that they can know where to seek for help. And of course, we can include them in different kind of voluntary activities, so that they can feel part of something, which can be very important for them, as is our groups, for example.
Thank you, Michaela.
I think it's important to have a legal framework, like we talked about the policies, and one of the findings was that we don't have much protection that has been going on for a long time. Laws being passed, laws being stopped, laws not being implemented. So to have a strong legal framework that is similar, in at least if we're talking about European countries, we have seen that we don't have standard basic protection laws. So that's one thing. And then because first, we need to understand that children cannot defend themselves, so we need laws to protect them. And when you talked about adolescents and how we tend to write it up, teenagers, they're moody, it's something that comes to the age, and it's like, no, it's a very key time in a person's life. They are very vulnerable, their head is all over the place, and it's the stage that comes before being an adult. So whatever happens to this person in that stage will determine the adult that they become. So they need laws to protect them. The mental health needs to be looked into and not just be writing off as like, oh, they're upset, crying as a teenager, it's okay, having problems with your friends, it's okay. It's like, no, we need laws to protect these people, because they will be the ones that decide what happens in a society when they're adults. We cannot have traumatized adults running around, we need to tackle this from the start.
Yeah, it is a pretty tender age, the one that, they form their opinions and their beliefs, and luckily also this is why the youth group methodology is the good age of 12 to 18, because then is where we have a lot of the trauma that we don't expect, and which we carry on later. So thank you for that.
Yes, if I can add to that, what you're saying actually makes a great sense, because traumatized kids grow into traumatized adults, and so it becomes a vicious circle. So it may be a slightly unorthodox idea, but perhaps adults also need to go through some kind of education
or therapy.
Otherwise, this sort of circle can never be broken, because at the end it comes to a power struggle. Really, the adult who have hold all the means of power and decision making, and the young people who are trying to influence them. But if the adults are not willing to change, then I mean, how are things going to happen? So perhaps when there are programs designed, there should be more adults also involved. And, people who think they know it all should also question their attitudes and behavior.
Yeah, I agree that it reminded me something else that as a coping thing that people used to say, that when they talk really bad about themselves, and usually it's this self-deprecation that people go through. A lot of people actually almost daily. The really nice question was, would you say that to the child version of yourself? And we kind of sometimes forget that we used to be kids as well, and if we had someone to treat us like that, I mean, it's pretty apparent where you would lead. So thank you for constructing that argument. And from your side?
În România, mai ales în zonele rurale, nu există foarte multe oportunități.
In Romania, especially in the rural areas, there are not many opportunities. Talk to the whole.
pentru preadolescenți și adolescenți.
Especially for pre-adolescents and adolescents.
Și atunci biblioteca rămâne practic singurul spațiu în care ei pot veni fără să fie constrânși de foarte multe reguli și judecați.
So this is what we were talking among ourselves as partners, that actually in the rural area, this is it's the only space that can be reinvented somehow to deliver some services for adolescents. It's a space, as she's mentioning, where adolescents can come and feel safe, not judged. And where they can talk about their issues, and especially when you have such a... I'm adding, odată ce ai o metodologie, să o folosești cu atât mai mult. And by the fact that you have a methodology that you can use, this is an extra incentive for them to come.
Care ne-a ajutat foarte mult și atelierele s-au legat, tematica atelierelor e
bine construită. That helped us a lot, and she feels that the way the methodology it's built, it's in such way for the subjects to be connected one to another, and they have a flow.
Da, și totodată putem să apelăm, așa cum ai menționat și mai devreme, la sprijinul Consiliului Local și al Primăriei să finanțeze o parte dintre activități și mai cu seamă să ofere sprijin de specialitate adolescenților care cu adevărat au nevoie de asta, cum a fost un caz special.
Wait. And she is mentioning, but it's not the same case in all the libraries where we are planting this, because she has a good relationship with the mayor, right? So for her, she's saying that it's simple to get extra resources from the local council. She goes there and she's like, I need some, some money maybe to send the adolescents to a camp or something, and she gets it. There are some other librarians that don't have access to these resources. There are also, just to add on this, they got money to pay a psychologist or something.
Da, pentru tinerii care cu adevărat aveau nevoie de un sprijin de specialitate pe care altfel nu cred că ar fi avut posibilitatea să-l obțină.
Yeah, connecting the dots, because in her case, and there were some cases, okay, you started the youth group, and you realize that 1 or 2 or 3 of your adolescents in your youth group, they have things that cannot be talked only within that group. They need more professional advice, and that's when they are doing this networking, curating. It's like, okay, but for that you have to talk with Christina. Christina is a therapist, and so on and so forth, right?
Da, și atunci biblioteca a oferit și un astfel de serviciu.
So there's the idea that the library is now having this as a service. It's a library service, and it's free. In many cases, you have to pay for such an opportunity, and it's huge. I know that we are preaching to ourselves, and we are doing this, but it's huge, because we are talking about sometimes 20, 25 to 30 meetings. There are cases when the adolescents are saying, let's stay more, because we did not finalize. You said that we have more exercises. Let's have the second, the third meeting for the same theme, so we don't end having 17 meetings, but 24. As you know, 17 is the standard. As Madara was presenting the methodology, but they ended having 24 to even 30 meetings. That's a lot of time, and it's not 1 hour. It's around 2 hours, sometimes 2 hours and a half, or 3 hours per meeting, right? Thank you.
Thank you.
You wanna say something? Vrei să zici ceva? No? Maybe this one you've mentioned. She mentioned something, and I will translate it from here. Is helping sometimes to have an extra incentive. For instance, at the end of the group, maybe to go somewhere, right? This is asta ziceai. In a camp. To go and clean a park or something, because this helps to have a more how do you say, to be more bond.
This is the extraction of the voice of the
Is this point here?
Well, thank you for your answers. I wouldn't want to summarize because I think you all added very nice comments as well. Well, moving on from the policy-making policies, if not for policies on a European or even a national level, how do you think we can implement our own recommendations, based on your experiences, of course, in our work with young people? So for instance, and on a regional level or even on a municipal level, how do you think your own recommendations, based on what you've experienced, maybe the European, let's say, level policy does not fit your context, and we've seen this also, that in rural areas different contexts and rules apply. So how would you implement your own recommendations at your own, let's say, local area, if possible?
Being flexible and using your own kind of like personal responsibility and using your like judgment to adapt the standard recommendations to your context. Kind of being flexible to the context that you're working with. It's not the same working with kids that are raised in a busy city than working with kids that are raised in a small town, because the social dynamics will be much different. Or if they are from the same family unit, you might need to separate them because there might be things that they don't want to say in front of kids from their family or kids from their school. So just being kind of aware of those factors.
Thank you.
It depends, because for me, in my experience in Pernik, we have the support of the local authorities, which is very important, because after the end of the project, we didn't end the groups, and so now the local authorities funded our projects. So we continued with the groups, which is very important for us, but yeah, it depends.
Thank you, Henry.
So you got financing in order to start new groups, or to continue to do things with the groups that you've already, so you're finalizing the
It's
meetings?
well, every year we have some kind of a foundation from the authorities about our projects. So we write a project at the end of the last year about the youth groups. So we had the financial support. So right now we have another project, which is once again about the groups, but with the new financial support.
But same participants from the group that you've ended, or with new participants?
New participants.
Cu new participanți. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah.
Și ca să continui ideea,
And to continue her
spre
idea,
exemplu, la noi, adolescenții și-au dorit foarte tare niște ateliere și pentru părinți.
for example, in my case, the adolescents wanted also some workshops for their parents.
Și am organizat inclusiv pentru adulți Și urmează să mai facem niște întâlniri la bibliotecă. Le-am prezentat câteva cărți pe care le pot
they did
citi.
some workshops then with the adults on the themes, the subjects that the adolescents were saying. My mom should
Yes.
also learn about that or have this exercise,
Da,
no?
da. Și totodată au învățat și câteva mici trucuri cum să se înțeleagă mai bine cu ei în perioada aceasta.
The parents.
Da.
And with this occasion, the parents also learn some tricks on how to, have a better relationship with
Să
their
fie mai
adolescents.
empatici.
To be more empathic, for instance,
Și să nu uite că au trăit și ei această perioadă cândva.
and not to forget that they experienced the same period themselves, and it was not necessarily very different from what their kids, adolescents, right, are experiencing now.
Thank you, Roxana. Can I just ask a follow-up question
Poți să întreb
on this? How do you cross that bridge in bringing the adults? So it's from what you said, the youngsters asked and you said, okay, my parents should know about this. But from your experience, how else could we soften up the parents into joining, or if they can, are there some special or different rules for them to follow in the youth group?
This is one, and I will add to that another one. Was it written in the constitution of the group, in the rules of the group, that you can do that, or you had to change the rules of the group?
Nu, am schimbat regulile pe parcurs.
It was not in the initial, as Madara was mentioning, right? Because initially you create the rules of the group, but then they had to change the rules of the group. Talking all of them in order to be able to get them on board. And now
Da, cumva la aceste ateliere a fost dorința lor de a veni, dar totodată prin promovarea pe care am făcut-o pe diferite rețele, părinții au fost totodată curioși să vină și să vadă ce se întâmplă în bibliotecă, ce se mai întâmplă în bibliotecă.
Deci și adolescenții au vorbit și au invitat?
Da,
Okay,
da.
so on one hand the adolescents were inviting them, so they were passing the message, hey, are you interested to come to have the same talks, because I'm talking about what we are having and we are feeling good, and so maybe you can also find it useful. And then they were also advertising it through their channels and listen, I mean, when you have a small community, it's very simple because you know everybody. 700 is the whole, 800 is the whole thing there. The community.
Și s-au simțit atât de bine încât au mai zis că mai vor.
And they felt so good. On what theme? Pe care temă s-au simțit așa bine?
Au fost discuții generale, nu am abordat o temă, o singură
More
temă.
general discussion. They felt so good that they wanted to come back. And here it is. I mean, you are getting people into your institution, and they feel that it's useful for them.
Yeah, thank you, Roxana. Would you mind answering us this question in your context? Because this is something that you sort of addressed in your answers. How do you think what obstacles would you face, for instance, if you try to use this approach?
Yes, it's like a two-sided coin. On one hand, how we influence policies, but from the grassroots level upwards. But also, sometimes the policies are there, but nobody wants to follow them. And this happens also, and this is our experience at the Know-how Center. As such that, for instance, there is a legislation which concerns the inclusive education of all children with some kind of mental health problem or disability or learning difficulties or any other sort of factors that might be considered a risk for the child. And there is a policy on a national level. It was implemented by the Ministry of Education, and there are guidelines, and they're very clear. But what we are facing is that the people who are actually working in the schools and they're good professionals, they are good teachers, and They have been, some of them have been in the system, educational system for more than 20, 30 years. And they're finding it really, really difficult. They're struggling with implementing the new policies. And then how do we change that? So it's a question of also changing the attitude of the workers and parents as well, and all the actors and all the people who are part of the everyday surroundings and all the relations that surround the children and adolescents. And what we have found that works, or at least sometimes it works more strongly, other times not so much, but we apply a methodology called action research, and that we found is very useful, because it gives the opportunity of all those different actors to come together and on an equal level share their viewpoints and share their experiences and their struggles and their difficulties with the process, and then everybody tries to find together a solution of how to implement those policies and those new rules that create difficulties. Sometimes it's on a interpersonal level, and it's a matter of gaining trust between different people. Like parents have to trust teachers, teachers have to trust parents, teachers have to trust social workers, the social workers have to trust I don't know, the police department, etc., etc. So there's all this kind of all the different systems that are involved. Slowly start working together, but it's a matter of building relationships and trust, and not only putting a policy on paper. So it's a process.
It's I think what Mihai also kind of suggested. I'm quoting you a lot or referencing you. Is that the society has to be also a bit more like comfortable and wanting to accept these policies. So it's interesting how it applies there too. Would anyone else want to answer that question regarding their context? Because we heard from a rural community.
And for that, what you are saying, it needs to be a proactive approach. I mean, it cannot happen. I mean, we cannot wait until the community, a society is ready for a piece of legislation. Those that want that piece of legislation needs to work on that.
Yeah. Thank you. Yep. Okay. So I can move to the next question. Thank you for your answers so far. So regarding the statistics that you saw in the second intellectual output, which gave essentially an idea of the violence and well-being in Bulgaria, Latvia, Romania, and Spain. From your experience, is this data representative? Either like from your own personal experience or from other, let's say, research that you've seen? Is the situation that the youngsters that answered, is it representative? Is it proportional? I can show you the statistics if you want to. Yeah. Sorry.
Well, Roxana, for instance, is saying yes. I mean, she very much will say that is overlapping in her case, in her community.
Sunt mulți adolescenți care probabil că vor răspunde că supraviețuiesc.
There are many adolescents that would probably say that they are just surviving.
Okay. Here it seems a bit, sorry, in three pieces that just surviving are almost the people that are good and normal. So you're saying this may not be as representative.
Uite, România.
So those would be in the back. Just surviving is at 22%. Youngsters that feel great is 17. In crisis, it's 1%. Good is 28, and normal is 32%.
So Roxana, what you're saying is that in your case is more just is more like they are just surviving. It has more percentages than. Yeah?
Aș putea spune că da.
I could say yes.
Tu ai vizitat comunitatea mea și ai văzut
I was visiting her community.
Cumva stilul de viață e peste medie, avem acces la multe resurse materiale, adică nivelul de trai este destul de ridicat, însă timpul pe care părinții îl oferă copiilor și adolescenților este...
That's interesting. So it's not a matter of if they have all they need. It's a fairly rich community, but the thing is that the time that the parents are spending with the adolescents, it's very low, and this reflects in the fact that they don't feel that they are, the quality time with the family is not there.
Îi se dau toate resursele
They
materiale,
are
bani,
given all the resources that they are the parents think that they need, like money and so on.
și foarte multe cerințe.
And they demand a lot from them. They want results from school and so on
Și
and so
atunci
forth.
presiunea
The
asupra lor
pressure
este
on them
foarte mare.
it's very big, but then they don't have the attention, the psychological needs. Again, I mean, it's like the
Maslow, priority.
Ți-am oferit foarte multe.
I gave you
sunt foarte
a lot.
înalte.
Now you have to return. You have to behave like an adult, you know?
Și
It was in the
atunci,
methodology.
Deseori ei se simt prinși ca într-o capcană.
Chris wants to.
Yeah, so.
I was waiting for you to translate.
Yes, the answer is yes.
We have another answer here that's kind of on the same lines.
Avem un
Probably a lot of
răspuns
the
cumva
yellow
similar.
could also be in the red area. There's a lot of youth who says, I'm fine, just because
E
they're
foarte
used
mult
to
de
wear a mask.
răspunsul ăsta de ziradă sunt bine, dar de fapt e bine pentru că nu recunosc că de fapt e o problemă. Yeah.
They put on this mask.
I don't know, in the methodology did we have also the control questions, because this can be actually if you ask sufficient questions, then they cannot fool you. They might say that it's desirable, how is it called, right? Desirable answer. Of course, it's more desirable to say I'm okay versus I'm not okay. But then you can ask different questions, and then you interlink them, and you.
That's when we put the statements. So we asked with the question, "How are you doing?" And then we had these statements for well-being that were the
Exactly.
different forms of well-being, and that's when we saw also lower numbers. So
Yeah,
what was said earlier, I also agree that this normal part is a lot because it may be the easiest answer to give.
Yeah.
I am not in crisis. I'm not great. I'm normal.
Alright. Would actually Latvia want to give their opinion on it, because you may not be in the panel, but so for Latvia we see that from the questionnaire that was answered, just surviving is 28%, normal is 33%, good is 26%, and in crisis is 8%, and great is 5%. Now, you don't have to give for all of them, but is this a representative picture?
I think what we really should look on are how few the data on marking good is, because that's something what's that, right? So it's kind of okay if I'm saying it's good, yeah, then it most likely it is good. Everything what is out of that is and I think it's also about the language, because generally talking about emotions and feelings is not what is mainstream, right? So whenever you need to answer something about how do you feel, what do you miss, what do you like, and so on, it might be hard to even put that in words because this is not something what we usually talk about. So therefore, going with ticking normal or I'm okay, I'm fine, that's the easiest way, but that's, I don't think that's the most representative way. Yeah. But I think the data are pretty accurate, and I totally believe that 5% is responsible. Yeah, I think that's unfortunately
Just the 5%.
You know, these kind of questions, and every other day it would depend on your mood and in those years for teenagers, the mood really changes every second. So I really don't know for our experience when we started our cycles, everybody said that they're fine, but we don't know. I really don't know if this is accurate because it really changes, and I think a lot of, if we look at statistics in Latvia, that it says that it goes better and better every year, the well-being of teenagers, and I think it's much better than it was like 5 or even 2 years ago.
But I think we also need to take into account the COVID time and the lockdown, and we have a national research on youth well-being and mental health throughout the COVID, and those were terrible data, and very accurate ones, and thankfully based on those data, that was a huge kick to start to do something about it. So there, in
a
that,
lot of problems for
so now in a lot of municipalities, adults and research centers have been opened to provide psychological support for teenagers. But before that,
Yeah, I think the data is quite, it has to do with COVID because the Spanish results are a bit more optimistic. We did our surveys a bit later than everyone else, so we did them like around April, May, when most of the respondents answered this. So I think the rest of the pilots did them a bit earlier. So mid 2022, the COVID restrictions were a bit easier than, let's say, 5 or 6 months before in the rest of Europe. So that might be one of the reasons why our teenagers seem to be doing better, but it might just be that they had just regained their freedom and they were really very optimistic to, go out again and see their friends more and walk around without a mask. So that might be the conditioning, or I don't know, maybe the sun makes them happy.
Actually, that's a really good insight on it. It does make sense. Just for context, for those that can't see maybe the graph, the pie chart, 48% of all the youngsters claim that they're good, 31% claim they're normal, just surviving is 7%, 2% in crisis, and 12% great. But thank you for that insight. It does paint a larger picture on it. And from Bulgaria, either from you or if someone else wants to step in too.
Well, I think that right now the depression and anxiety, as I say, increase, and we see it mostly by the aggressive attitude of youngsters in schools, because we have some cases with aggressions in schools. So we work with this youngster. There is some cases with youngster with panic attacks or things like that. So when I'm talking about statistics, I think that maybe right now, as you say, the freedom, some kind of go to the good things, but the depression and anxiety stayed somewhere there. And from time to time it just explodes. So that's been my experience.
Thank you, Michaela, for the answer. Thank you for the grim truth of what's happening. Does anyone else from Bulgaria want to answer, since we're here?
I had something else to add. Something that was mentioned a few times was about the education and the stress levels. One thing that we found in the research was that, because we also asked what is affecting well-being in a bad way. And education was one of the biggest, and clarifying was a lot of pressure from parents, like you said about the parents demanding, and that was one of the biggest factors for more stress, for more anxiety, for more depression, was this pressure both from the educational system but also from their parents, that they felt a lot of weight on them.
Nice. I'm not in Bulgaria, but based on that, I remember also one of the other risk factors of well-being was not knowing so much of Bulgarian politics and changes. was a political shift constantly in the country, within country, there was mentioning, and that causing an instability to the day-to-day way of examination. So many parents would say this is just another way to pass your exam, and many students expressed that we were taught a certain way to study, now things are changing, and it causes a lot of stress. We cannot perform in another manner, in another way that we've been taught already for the past 12 years from Bulgaria.
There's not only projects in schools, but also in sports or any other activities in which they are included. So all of the things make them feel not so good.
Toate cumva fac să se simtă de bine.
Something else is the general apathy I've noticed in people I know.
Apathy.
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 As in
Apatia.
towards
O altă
other
chestie
people,
este
like not
apatia
caring
generală.
about like how other people are doing.
Apatie e cuvântul.
You are surviving, feeling apathetic towards your studies, feeling apathetic towards the possibility of change, and feeling stuck in a constant cycle.
Just wanted, because I heard Cristina did not hear, vorbește de o stare de apatie generală în societate, că simți că ești neputincios, că nu știi de unde să le apuci. Very, very true, and this is pretty much everywhere now post-COVID.
Yeah, thank you, Jason.
Apathy is one of the signs of depression, so we shouldn't just think, oh, you know, again, moody teenagers, it's like this person is depressed. That's one of the just feeling like flat emotions doesn't mean that they're not sad. It's a very bad sign of someone's mental health.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. By the way, it's really important, and people don't notice that the apathy from depression. Yeah.
I can also talk, about the Bulgarian case because I represented once Bulgaria.
I have a last question for me, and then we can ask the audience as well. We talked a lot about youth work. We talked about methodology. We talked about the state of well-being and all the actions and how youth workers have a different role. They're either librarians, or social workers, educators. I would like to ask all of you, if possible, to give a couple of let's say points on what makes a good youth worker, because I think all of you have a different capacity and have a different let's say context, but what would you say makes a good youth worker? This is a general question.
Personal consider că adolescența chiar este un timp pentru aripi.
Oh man, you're using these big words. Okay, so for me, adolescence is the time of giving the wings to the other.
Și e în puterea noastră, adulților, să învățăm pe ei ca păsări tinere să zboare.
And it's in our duty, and we have this as a responsibility as youth workers. To create the context for them to fly.
Să le recunoaștem abilitățile, talentele.
To recognize their abilities, their talents.
Și cumva să, pe lângă faptul că îi ajutăm să le descopere, totodată să le creăm și oportunități de a le manifesta.
So and to create the space, one to discover them, but also to
să le practice, să le pună...
to put them in practice.
Thank you, Roxanne.
Din experiența mea,
from my experience,
o să fii lucrător de tineret bun înseamnă cumva să le arăți că și tu înveți în același timp cu ei, ca să nu se simtă
it's showing them that you also use that time together to learn. It's not that you are teaching them something. It's a mutual process of learning.
Pentru că dacă pare că tu știi tot ca lucrător de tineret, ei se pot simți inferiori.
Because if you are your approach is somehow in the direction that you know everything, then they will not feel good. They will feel less than you are. She used the word inferior.
Thank you, Denisa. Would you like to add something?
I think a youth worker should have a good knowledge base
Ar trebui să aibă cunoștințe foarte bune, un
children's
lucrător
rights,
cu tineret despre drepturile
should be qualified,
să fie calificat,
also to know the boundaries
să
in
știe
this
limitele profesiei, ce vorbeam și la tine.
professional boundaries for his work. Also, he needs to be inspiring
Să știi
to
că poate
children. I
fi,
think he
știi
has to
până
be
unde
able to
poate să
inspire
întindă,
children and
să poată să inspire,
to be a natural
să
leader
fie un lider
and someone
natural
that children can look up to as a good
și
example.
cineva la care ceilalți
Thank you for that too.
Yes, the boundaries are important, and now there's only so much you can do. You have to be realistic about the reach of your work, because it's quite easy. You're working in a very emotional environment, so it's quite easy to get emotionally invested and frustrated, and even just the job gets the best of you. So just be realistic about what you can actually do. Do your best within your field, but just know where to draw the line and where know what to do.
You set your own boundaries so you don't burn out later on. It affects the rest. Hello, would you like to add something to it?
Well, yeah, for me, youth workers have to influence the youngster and to provide support and tools for for a positive future throughout practical and social education, because non-formal education, it is a form of learning throughout experience, so we have to be very careful about what we are teaching them, but as well as being their big influencer. So yeah, leader, for me, youth workers are some kind of leaders.
And it's a comment from Denisa following up to what was said, that actually, yes, of course we have to be well prepared and so on, but to make it in such a way that the others will not feel that, you know, our audience, right, the adolescents, do not feel that it's just a job that you are performing and that's it. We need to know, have empathy. We need to put all these ingredients, because it's a very special job, if you want. It's not the usual, you know, it's not accounting, right? It's healthy to put the limits that they were mentioned, but also to explain to them that if you are putting this, is because this.
Okay. Thank you for that, Melissa. I really like this question, because I think we're all here on to see the perspective of youth work, and these are maybe some elements that you can really think about and reflect, because you're all, let's say, specialists in your own sector, and I'm really thankful that you did mention a lot of points, and a lot of points that are overlapping. It shows that, you know, this is a pretty strong element, and I think the rest of you can also have a small reflection inside. Do I have those things? How does, if I don't have it exactly like that, how is it different or similar in my own context? So, but also reflect on that. But would you like to add something in regard to what makes a good youth worker? Something that wasn't said, or to add something to what that was said?
I think what Denisa said, you have to have the qualifications and you have to have the knowledge, but if you don't have the passion, it's difficult to be a youth worker for a while. Because it is a job that demands that you put your heart into it, and that you care for the topic, and you care for the young people, and you care for whatever you're doing with it a lot. So that's how I think it adds that it's a qualified person that cares.
Yes.
It dares to care.
Thank you, Dara. Anyone else would like to add something from their own context? Something?
I think in the topics covered in the youth group methodology, it's very important to keep on this self-critique in a way, being objective towards what you know, and being very, very conscious of our own biases, because we all have them, and because this is how we navigate through the world, and that's okay, but it's what we do about it, and so therefore that we are not, we're being very, very self-aware of how we are acting in the conduct of if we are, and staying open for learning.
Să fim și noi deschiși procesul ăsta de a învăța.
It is. Thank you, Adra. Anyone else would like to add something? Anyone would like to ask? Because from the panel questions we're over, but are you willing to accept some questions if there are any? sort of. Depends on the question. Well, is there something that someone would like to ask? And if the panelists would want to, they could answer. Would you like to ask? Yeah?
Because now we're talking based on the topic of caring for what you do and having passion for what you do. As many jobs, but specifically youth workers, requires a lot of energy and emotional energy and influence. How do you have a balance between burning out, because it's a thing that occurs, especially during quarantine, where you have to find other resources and other ways of doing the job, and sustaining a level of balance in your daily life. So continuing being a worker without burning out and remaining motivated.
This might not be a very positive piece of advice, but we've been not doing the job for a very long time, because what I have found in jobs that you work with vulnerable groups is that people that have been doing it for a long time, then they tend to have a very pessimistic approach, or they just like have kind of given up on those jobs, mainly because of lack of resources, but they tend to like focus that frustration sometimes towards the group of people that they work with, whether it's people that are in prison or young people that have committed crimes or people with bad mental health. So you see the big difference between someone that has been doing it for a couple of years and someone that has been doing it for 20 years. So maybe obviously people need to be well trained and have the expertise, but in order to keep the passion, maybe switch it up. And if you have that experience, maybe you take it into an office, maybe you take it into policy making, maybe you take it into public institutions, but to do it in like different fields, because if you do like a direct field work for too long, you might get frustrated, because burnout, most people work without many resources, it will get to you eventually.
Thank you, Claire. That's really good advice and insightful too.
It's actually a very good question. In social work, we have supervising sessions. There is a standard for supervision, and without this supervision, it's really, really difficult to cope. I don't know whether there is such a standard in youth work. I'm not personally aware of never actually being across this topic, but in social work, it's absolutely necessary to have somebody
it's mandatory.
that you can talk to, and that you can
because it's very, very sensitive
tension and go over the emotions and sort of it has a very good therapeutic effect, and it also aligns you professionally with where you stand and how you can reconfigure
sau să transform actul de asistență socială în altceva, pentru că ai adăugat prea mult pe la tine cât pierzi de fapt esența ceea ce trebuie să dai departe.
Again, consider professional boundaries, because like you said, when you work with vulnerable people, if you are a helping person, it's natural that you would want to do more than you can actually have as a resource.
Or if you work with people like the Martha Center, people that have been victims of sexual exploitation, you do that for a long time, you might kind of lose faith in humanity, and just don't want to do this anymore. It's like, I can't keep seeing this every day, I need to like switch it and do something else.
So there really needs to be a balance between what you can do and from maybe point of view that there are certain things you can change, but others maybe you cannot if you try. So it's actually a very, very, very difficult question.
Yeah. I work with a lot of psychologists and social workers that deal with very severe cases of vulnerable cases, because I work also with refugees for about 4 years now, and I see a decentralization where initially, I remember for the years in our street, you had experience, you would hear the case of rape and you'd be shocked. Now it's one case of rape. They close the file and they pass it on. So I see people experience that, and you can lose the uniqueness of being in that position to actually do something when you cannot just see it as a file that just closes the one.
So exactly, that's why it's important to have this kind of supervision. Also, there is something called Swartz rounds. I don't know if you ever heard of it. Look it up. It's a very interesting process. Swartz rounds, SCH, Schwartz. they started implementing it in the UK. It's, I
sau o
think,
metodologie care a fost implementată în Marea
used it
Britanie
in hospital settings,
în cadrul
where
spitalității.
like sometimes health workers also struggle with the same kind of problems because they face death on a daily basis. Especially health workers and midwives who work with children's wards. And when there are
atunci îți dai seama că
children
absorb treaba
in
asta
hospitals dying of birth and things like that, and they find it very, very hard to deal with those emotions. So they get together as a group and they talk about it and they validate their feelings. And there's another thing also that you can actually feel as a failure because you have done everything possible and then still the outcome is negative, and then you feel like a professional failure because you think you could have helped it if you didn't actually. So you really have to go through a process of validating the emotion and still find yourself valuable and continue with your daily tasks, because yes, you cannot do it for very long, but also if this is your professional
I cannot comment on something. I mean, why are we
it's your
getting
profession.
into such a pessimistic mood because it's not about you?
We'll bring it back.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Well, just to add like a stroke of thank you, by the way, for your insight for this too, and for the suggestion to look up. Well, there is also the let's say the what's the reverse of pessimism?
Optimism.
Yes, there is also the optimistic side, and this is actually going back to Clara's comment, is to switch it up, is to look for other look for other opportunities when resources go low. Look for something else. It's not as easy. I think all of us have faced it in one way or the other. Are there any other questions, by the way, you would like to ask? Or I just would like one last question on an optimistic tone. What is your drive specifically in youth work? So we you know that it's going to be grim. You know the let's say the issues that you would face. But what is that personal drive that keeps you going?
La personal, care e motivatorul?
Haide,
motivația cred că are o foarte bună legătură și cu partea aia să nu ajungi să fii epuizat.
Part of the motivation it's also to not get to the state where you are exhausted.
Pentru că cumva cred că ar exista trei părți. Prima dată
There are three things to be considered here, not one, not two, three.
Prima dată trebuie să-ți iei o parte din energie din munca pe care o faci.
First, to take a part of the energy from the work that you are doing.
Să știi că ai alți oameni ca și tine de la care poți să te inspiri și cu care poți să faci un schimb de idei.
To know that you have also other people around you that can be an inspiration for you, but also that you can share information with and practice it.
Și cum a zis și ea, că tu formezi un spațiu care după ce pleci tu, tinerii pot în continuare să-și rezolvi problemele între ei. Se formează o comunitate între ei, tu ai fost, ai lăsat o sămânță, ai plecat și tot faci asta.
And it was mentioned is that you to realize that actually you create, you nurture a space that will exist and should exist also after you finish your intervention. Your role is finished because you create a safe space for these people to continue to talk about their issues and so on and so forth. She did not mention the so forth.
Thank you, Denise.
Well, for me, before I become Youth Preventative Program Coordinator and start working with youngster, I have not so good experience working in crisis center for children suffering from violence and trafficking. I saw a lot in this year, a lot of pain, because the children suffer, and most of them have experienced some kind of a sexual violence and things like that. I saw the impact on this violence throughout their bad behavior because they are bad children. And so after this experience, I think that it took me like more than a year to recover from all the things I experienced there. And after that, my motto become no more intervention, more prevention. So I think that this is my kind of a power, because for me, as I said, the prevention is the key. And so yeah, I hope that the government and things like that put much more effort into prevention rather than intervention, rather than money in this kind of services. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To me, for some period, about a couple of years, I worked in this women's center. They were between the ages of 18 and 25. They were young moms that suffered from bad mental health. So many of them had their kids when they were still underage. Obviously, their life trajectory was catastrophic. So it was quite, once you start, you kind of think, I'm going to change this person's life, and soon you realize that there's only so much you can do, because, this is not a Hollywood film. But then, so there's nothing you can do about what happened to them before, and you don't have enough power in yourself to change their life or to guarantee them a perfect, outcome to the situation. But my drive was like, okay, one day at a time, I might not be able to help what happens in 3 years' time or even in 1 year's time, but while I'm on shift, at least I'm going to make sure that this person has a good day today. So even if it's just we're going to the supermarket because you don't know how to organize your home budget, we're going to go to the supermarket, I'm going to teach you how to shop for the week, and that was something good, that was something that I could control. Or if we're tidying up the flat, this is something that I can control, we're going to do it nicely, and you're going to have a good memory of this day, even though you don't have very good memories of your previous life. I don't know if this is going to actually have an impact of how your life turns out, but just like my motivation was like one day at a time, have the positive impact that you can actually make on them, not what you wish you could do, just be realistic.
Thank you very much, Clara. Would anyone else like to add?
Noi, bibliotecarii, de obicei ne lăsăm afectați de multe ori de poveștile pe care le auzim de la...
Sometimes we get emotional because of the stories that we hear around us.
Dar zâmbetele,
As the librarian, as a profession,
zâmbetele, îmbrățișările și poveștile de succes ale adolescenților, spre exemplu faptul că a intrat la o facultate la care își dorea foarte mult, pe care își dorea foarte mult să urmeze, e un combustibil foarte bun pentru noi.
But then when like for instance in the youth groups, when you see their smiles, or you see that afterwards a member of the group enter the faculty and so on, this is like the fuel that is giving you energy to continue.
Thank you, Sam. Does anyone else want to add something, or should we call it the end of it?
I'm just going to say 2 words: hope, and if not us, who else?
That's the perfect way to end it. Thank you very much. If you want to say something, you can say. So we are 5 minutes earlier from the coffee break, but please do indulge yourselves. So see you back at 4 o'clock. Yes, 4 o'clock. We're gonna continue. Go.
think, very somewhat provocative, somewhat, at least conversation-provoking things. First, I want to invite some of the young people that were part of the youth groups, and that also, some of them also led some youth groups after that. So can you join me here so I can ask you some questions?
Yes, I have to go. Yes.
There's also one more spot.
Yes.
So we've been talking all day about wanting to listen to young people. So we want to hear what you have to say. If you want, you can start by introducing yourself and saying when you were part of the youth group, where. Do you want the chair, Mika?
No, I'll stay like you are.
Okay.
I'll do it.
Okay, so my name is Andrea. I'm 14 years old and I'm from Romania. I participate to this group to Dare to Care from February to I think August.
This year?
Yes.
Cool.
I'm part of the group that found this like for 4 years. So I know my friends and the one that like my college. I know them.
Good. Hi.
Hi, my name is Matei. I'm 14 years old. I'm from Romania. I participating in Dare to Care last year, and the atmosphere was so fun. And
thank you.
Okay, my name is Bessie. I am 18 years old. I participated in Dare to Care, I think the summer of 2020 until the end of December, and then I led another youth group with my partner, who unfortunately isn't here today, in the summer of next year until again winter.
Okay, my name is Nia. I'm from Bulgaria, Pernik. I was part of the first year group in 2021, and then again in 2021 I was part of the team of the leaders in second year group in Pernik.
Okay. So when you were participants in the youth group, how did the youth group go? What made it interesting or special, or like something that keeps you all the way here to Bulgaria or all the way here to the conference?
Well, it was like a new experience to me, and the games and the activities that we played, there was super fun, and I learned a lot from them. So they were games, but they teach us in a way, and it was kind of special for me. It was a new kind of thing.
okay. Well, the special thing for me in Dare to Care was people, atmosphere, and library, because learn new things in game. And
Okay, so I joined in with a few other people through Facebook. That's how I met my leaders, Nora and Raya. And at the beginning of the school year, most people had school and they were busy. So it was I was the only one. I was the last one standing, and I was asked if I wanted to continue participating. And because I really enjoyed talking about the subjects we were talking about, and I enjoyed discussing them, I decided to continue, and then I decided to continue the practice with the new group.
I think the most important thing is that there was a games and sessions that we are not talking in school or in with our friends and teachers maybe. And the other thing is that you can share your opinion or something that's personal, and you know that it will be only in the group, and you are not being criticized or something like this.
Did you guys have a favorite subject from the different topics that you covered?
For me, it was violence and relationships and addictions. Sorry.
Mine was media literacy. That was an additional subject we covered as the last session.
I don't have a special subject because every subject was interesting.
Me neither.
Okay, I think some have like a lot and some have all of them, depending. Was there something that you think is the most important thing, or something very important that you learned from the youth group? Maybe something that you changed your mind on? Because we were talking earlier how the youth group doesn't maybe necessarily teach you something, but it will provide a discussion opportunity or something to change your mind about.
To express my feelings and my thoughts, because at first it was like I was very shy and like I couldn't express what I was thinking, but then the guide told us to not be shy because this is a safe one, and all the answers are a good one. There are no wrong answers, and
yeah. Whenever we have like just workshops with, because sometimes we have some workshops that are based on the youth group methodology, this is the thing that we have to explain the most to people, that you can just express your opinion and there's no wrong answer, and it's okay to just say what you're thinking and what you're feeling. So I'm glad that this freed you.
Me? I learned you can open to some people and they don't judge, judge you, and they can help you in your problem.
To me, the challenge wasn't so much the participation as much it was leading the group, the next group, because I had to be very flexible in some cases, and I had to improvise on the spot. And something I learned is that I'm not so bad at it. I still don't like doing it, but I feel like more confident in my abilities.
Okay. I think it's important to know that you can share your opinion, and there are like so much different between the people, and you are not that confident, but you can express your feelings and think about something that you never thought about, and you can see that you can choose your path in the life.
Was there any time where you had a disagreement and you stayed with different opinions, like the group agreed to disagree on something?
I can't remember.
Was there a time when the group like had a discussion and they agreed to disagree, so they stopped even though they didn't reach a common opinion?
In our first group, it was interesting, the theme about victims, but in the beginning we are disagree that always the victims are
always the victims are right, or always the victims are at fault?
Thank you.
They're what? Victims?
At fault.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But in the end, there are like so different opinions, and everyone was on another opinion. And not everyone was disagreeing with this, but someone agree, someone disagree, and we saw the difference between us. in our thinking.
Was that a change like in one session?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there any time with you that you had a clash and then you left it at that?
I don't remember exactly, but I think yeah, because I don't know the subject, but I remember that everyone has a different opinion, and like we explain it to each other to understand why they choose that and not choose what I choose. And at the end, we agree with each other, even though we didn't have the same
opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. How did that feel? Because I know that in the youth groups there's a lot of like, okay, discussion, and you reach a common agreement. But when there is discussion, and you are still left with different opinion, did you feel in any way like provoked, or did it stay with you somehow?
For me, yes. I had to learn to let some of the things go, because like you can't always be on the same opinion, and that doesn't mean you are like in any way attacked, because like sometimes I take things sometimes personally.
I agree, and I can add that it's not always like the right answer or wrong answer. Everyone has their opinion.
So for the two of you that also led youth groups afterwards, how did the change feel?
To me personally, it was way more stressful having to explain all the concepts, even if I knew them beforehand. Something that helped was that I already knew the people I was talking to, and I could like do some more freestyle with the examples, which sometimes I was successful, sometimes I wasn't. But like, well, that's the first group. It's normal.
Yeah, same for me, and it's like you are more confident, and you're trying to express your feelings, but not to make them to think like you.
Yeah, not to impose your feelings. That's cool. So in both in Romania, from what I've heard and what I've seen, and in Bulgaria, we had a lot of youth groups that were led from, in Latvia, of course, which started the process. But there were a lot of youth groups that were led by previous participants. And I think this peer-to-peer education is one of the best things that we've seen come out of the project, when you show the desire that you want to be the next leader of the youth group. How did you see an impact in other people? Did you see these things that we talk about, the improvement in well-being, improvement in self-esteem? Did you see that in the people in the youth group that you were in?
I remember one of the participants saying that they felt more open-minded after participating in the youth group, which was a win. So yeah.
Like in our group, the people were sharing their problems and wanting to talk with us in the group, and yeah, it was positive for them.
Yeah. In my group, the people after the sessions, the people were like, I can't talk to you because I'm open, and I can
express.
Yeah, I can express my thoughts good and better, and like this helped us very much.
Nice. Do you agree?
Yes.
One question that it wasn't in the prepared questions, but I was thinking the results from the research that you saw about how young people are feeling, if they're feeling just surviving or okay or something. Do you see that in your lives?
Yes, and I think in the school you can talk to psychologist because you think all the people are going to shame me or something like this, and I think the non-formal education is important in this moment and it can help.
I also agree with this. From the people I know and the things I have observed in school and in other groups, and people like from other places that I know, I can confirm that people are not okay. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much for this. And I wanted to ask if someone from the audience has any questions.
Yeah, I would like to ask, have you had any other opportunities to talk about the issues that are like the themes for the different meetings, like gender and sexual orientation, violence, healthy communication? Is there, like in your own country, part of the curriculum or other forms of groups that you have participated in which tackle the same issues, or was this the only time that you had to talk about these things?
In my personal experience, I think the closest thing to the ideas expressed in the youth group is it's a philosophy class, but unfortunately, because of the school curriculum, it's not a subject that is taken very seriously, both by students and teachers. So a lot of the ideas remain unseen.
I went to something like little camp for youths and something like this, and we talked about mental health and something like that. But this was after the group and after COVID.
How did it compare? Was it better, worse, more in depth, less?
It was different because it was with people in age 15 to 29. It was like in the next level maybe.
How about you guys? Did you encounter these topics before the youth group?
No, this was the only one, because no one talked with us about this, and we didn't find the other's opinion. And
yeah, the first one. Okay, thank you for the question.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Did you notice a change in the way you communicate with your friends and with your parents after the youth group?
Say yes.
You get a 1 for giving the answers.
Correct. I was feeling more comfortable and more confident about talking about taboo themes.
I'd say I got a bit more used to being confrontational about people who say ignorant stuff, and confronting them about their beliefs and why they believe what they believe.
A change in society.
Let's hope.
You? Did you notice any difference in the way you talk with your parents or with your friends?
I was more confident because I was discussing this earlier, and I was comfortable talking about that subject with them.
And me, I was more comfortable to talk with my mother this subject because he teach me in library, because he's a librarian, and I speak with her in library.
That's nice. So you were in a youth group led by your mom?
Yes.
Cool.
That's very brave.
Very brave, yeah. Mother, you had a question.
Yeah, I had a question, and I would be really happy if maybe all of you could give some insight. Was there anything missing in the process of the youth group, or maybe the topics which weren't covered enough, and you felt that we would like to spend some more time on this, or maybe some more activities or more information. In general, what wasn't there, what might be useful to be there?
I would like to add ethics, maybe.
Sorry?
Ethics.
Ethics?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you expand a bit more? What would be good for you?
Ethics with youth workers and youth policy, maybe. I would like to end that.
I think media literacy should be added to the methodology. Media literacy, and I think it's also a subject that should be not just one session but multiple, because it has learning to get your information correctly and not believe in misinformation, and it's a subject that is very hard to cover in one session. It has a lot of tactics that could be used against young people, and that could create even more biases and hatred.
In my country and in my experience, there wasn't anything missing, because all of my questions had an answer after the session, and for me personally, I think I could add something more to a session.
I agree with them, because we are from this country, the same country.
Good. Mikhail, did you also have a question?
Yes, I'm trying to follow up on your question, but trying to if you can guide us through the participation in the youth group meetings. How did it change? I'm sure something changed from the beginning, when probably things were not clear and you were not very open to talk. Probably things change over the, until you get to the end. Can you tell us more about that? This is the first question, and second, the trigger. What triggered you to actually participate in such a crazy thing? Thank you, and you are amazing, by the way.
I think we have more resources and more reading, more info, and we have asked many questions, but then we have an answer with that.
I've already answered the first question with regards to the time I was participating, but when I was leading, we were a bit more successful in the sense that only one person dropped out. Maybe it's because I already knew the people who were participating, and I knew them personally. Some of them didn't know each other, and this helped to keep their interest in the youth group. And by the end, they were willing to talk more about themselves, and they became, if not friends, people who they liked relatively, and some of them became even closer friends, and some of them started doing projects on their own, actually.
In my country, some of the people that we were at the beginning just quit. I like to ask them why, but I think I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna go home. And that's it.
Yeah, but those that remained, how was it, the atmosphere growing or not, remaining the same from the beginning until the end?
Maybe you can ask us the question.
Yes,
you can answer in Romanian and we can translate. Okay, puteți să răspundeți și la
Yeah.
Întrebam cum
s-a schimbat energia, dacă s-a schimbat pe parcursul celor 17-20 de întâlniri.
S-a schimbat pentru că confidențialitatea noastră a crescut pe timpul sesiunilor și am fost mult mai deschiși și cu noi însumi, dar și cu ceilalți din jurul nostru.
Okay, so by the time they were getting more and more into the subjects, they realized that actually it's a safe space. It's confidentiality, that it's respected, and you know the things that you are talking are not getting out. And then they started to open more and more, and this made them have a better bond.
And they got to know themselves better as well. So.
Yes, yes.
I agree, absolutely.
Yeah, because this is actually one of the magic things about such groups, and the way it is designed in order for you guys to have a safe space to actually talk about the things that otherwise you don't talk. So that's why I was asking. Yeah.
I have another question. We asked the youth workers before what a youth worker should be, but what do you think a youth worker should be like?
Well, I think like the things mentioned earlier are like all true. For me personally, like a youth worker should be like a very good listener, and they shouldn't like jump to conclusions. They shouldn't try to in any way belittle the other participants, because even if they're younger, even if they're expressing some stupid opinion or something very not researched hard enough, something very taken from their personal bias, you can always be respectful to them while trying to deconstruct it with them, because they're also autonomous people. And yeah.
So they should be respectful.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to add?
I think they need to be informed, understanding, and maybe to be positive about things, and to make you like you can share always.
I don't think so. I don't think I'd like to add more. My opinion is they need to be a good listening and to accept the other's opinion, to see her opinion or him opinion from their eyes, to not judge them at all.
Yeah. Okay.
And they should know their boundaries, where they like know this and where this is out of their limits.
Yeah. When I was talking actually to Alec and Michaela, who led your youth group, they were telling me about how, because you have a chat together with everyone, and they were like, for example, we get this message in the middle of the night, we're going out to party, and they know like it's out of time, it's too late, they might be awake, but they know that the boundary is set and they don't even respond. There is the boundary of being a youth worker and not necessarily a part of the party group and everything.
Just one kind request. If we can have also like 1 minute, to have Maya tell us, because she is also was part of a youth group, and maybe she can share just a general thing. Further questions, whatever you want to share with us from your perspective. To hear also you. We are asking for your input. We are asking for your input also. What was your experience as a participant? You can say in Romanian, I can translate, or in English.
Know myself better and examine
For sharing. Thank you for.
Yes. Thank you. Do you want to say something else? Yeah.
Când vor fi mai adaptați cu această experiență? Când vor fi mai mari, când vor crește, dacă vor vrea să mai repete această experiență. Adică acum nu la 14 ani, dar când vor avea 18, poate vor avea mai multe de învățat.
If you would, so it's a question for you. So if when you'll be a bit older, if you would be willing to get through a similar kind of experience whereby you will talk about these subjects, of course with a different eye, by the time you're, I don't know, 18, 19. Some they're already
some are already dating.
Yeah, I would, because my mindset would be different, and I'm sure that I'm gonna see the things different, not how I'm seeing them now. And I think I would help them, the others, I would help them just being more open.
For me personally, yes, because in your lifetime you're always learning and you can always learn something new.
I'd also like to continue because I can't stand it when people say stupid things and it will eat me from the inside and I will lose my sleep over it, so
we don't want that.
The question was for the youngster, but I think that we also as a leader grow together with the youngster and we learn a lot from them as well, so thank you about that as well.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar, by the way, because when you asked this, I was thinking how in the initial Dare to Care training, when we were the youth workers, we were all saying, we wish we could be in the group. Can we be participants?
We did not have such opportunities. Almost all of us here, we were not participating in such things, and that's why we are so messed up now.
As well, right? Because we had this discussion, or at least I mentioned, looking into the child within us, like how we used to be. And I don't think I've ever met individuals like you at let's say, at your age or even younger. So it's really empowering and very inspiring to see youngsters like you. Where were you in my age? I mean, we didn't have these things, and we became messed up or whatever, but we're trying to deal with it now. So just it's amazing the mentality that you have and the will to continue this. It's truly remarkable. So I'm proud of you.
Ali, do me a favor and never enter public school, please.
Why?
Yes. And never enter public school. No, I'm kidding. It's
we are going to lose you,
Yeah.
Are there any more questions? If not, I would like to thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. It is, in the end, it's really what drives us. What we were talking about before is that we see that there's meaning, and this is meaning. So thank you guys very much.
Because I was oh no wait, no, I just wanted to
Okay, so last activity of the conference, but I just wanted to share before we start the last activity that at 6 o'clock downstairs where we had lunch, we're going to have a small cocktail. So if please you would like, we would be happy if you join us.
For those that are in drinking age, just
for those who are not in drinking age, no wine. Otherwise, you can still join.
Yeah.
There will be some small snacks and stuff, but just I don't think we ordered any buza, but that's my bad, and we'll get some. So for the last one, we've been talking a lot about the youth group methodology. Obviously, the whole conference and the whole project has been revolving around it. So we wanted to demonstrate and do an activity together with you that we have from the youth group methodology. And it's one that whenever we've done this activity, there's been always a lot of discussion, a lot of debate. So it's always a favorite of mine to see what people think about it, how they feel, and how we end up. For those of you who have led the youth groups or have participated, I would like for you to still participate and to play along with us and see maybe if your mind has changed somehow, or if you want to add some new thoughts to how you've gone through it. So this is the story of Mary and John. Do you want to say something?
No, I just I want to see the result.
So some context. This isn't an activity that is done in the beginning of the youth group. It isn't something that is done when the youngsters still don't know each other, but it is much more ahead, almost at the end of the methodology, when youngsters know each other, they have this created group, this safe space, and also when they've gathered a lot of discussion and knowledge about the topics of gender roles, about sexism, about violence, and this is in the topic of recognizing violence, I think, or in power in relationships. Mother, you can, yeah. So what we're gonna do is me and Ali are gonna read you the story of Mary and John. These are the characters in the story, and we're going to ask you just to listen in the beginning, and then we will tell you what to do.
Yep. You want me to read it as well?
You have your copy too in the black one. Oh,
sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Ready? Any objections?
No.
Okay, so the characters in the story are Mary, who is 16, and she falls in love with John. John, who is 17, and he falls in love with Mary. There's Mary's mom. Yeah, you can see this information. That's 50 years old. Chris is 19 years old, and Leon is 16 years old. So the story.
I start. It's a very difficult spring in Mary's life. Mary's in love for the first time in her life. She spends a lot of time with John. They visit each other, meet their friends and families.
One day, John tells Mary that his family is moving abroad. John's father, who is a doctor, has been offered a job with better pay. John's parents have decided that they should all go together.
John and Mary promise each other that they will maintain their relationship and do the best to stay together.
John leaves. Mary's world is shattered. Even though they communicate via Skype and WhatsApp, etc., it's not the same because the other person isn't nearby.
Mary wants to go and visit John, but since Mary's family, in parentheses she lives with her mother who owns a farm, has no means to support Mary's idea. Therefore, Mary decides to get a job. She washes dishes at the local cafe in the evenings and earns money on the weekends, cleaning her neighbor's house and babysitting. It is also very important to Mary that she performs well at school, so her daily routine consists of school, work, home, school, work, home.
One Friday night, a friend persuades Mary to go to a party. Mary is hesitant at first because she's exhausted, but she agrees in the end.
At the party, Mary meets Chris, who invites her to dance. He noticed Mary some time ago, and now they finally have the chance to get to know each other. During the dance, Chris tries to kiss Mary. Mary rejects him and tells her that she has a boyfriend. When Chris asks, "Then why are you alone at the party and without your boyfriend?" Mary tells him the story.
Chris listens to the story and he says, "Me and some friends are going on a road trip to Europe in 2 weeks, and we have one free seat in the car. We can take you." Mary is overjoyed because she's sure she has saved enough to pay for fuel, but Chris says, on one condition: "You have this spot in the car only if you have sex with me. You have 2 weeks to decide."
Mary is very confused and isn't sure what to do. For some days, she tries not to think of the situation, but as more time passes, the more confused she feels.
So she goes to her mom for advice.
After hearing Mary's story, her mom says, "Honey, you've grown up now, and that's your decision. I do not want to tell you or teach you what you should do. These are your relationships and your responsibility as well."
After long and painful deliberations, Mary agrees and has sex with Chris.
Chris keeps his word and takes Mary to John. During the whole journey, Chris treats Mary nicely, and no one knows what has happened between them.
Mary arrives at John's place. After the initial excitement and joy is over, John naturally asks Mary how she got there. Mary hesitates with her answer at first, but eventually she tells him the truth and asks John for forgiveness.
John is furious and says, "If that's what you did, I don't need you anymore. I never want to see you again."
Mary calls her mom, who sends some money for the way back. When Mary gets home, her whole life is turned upside down. She still attends school and goes to work, but nothing gives her happiness anymore. She's angry with herself, blames herself for what she did. Mary's heart is broken, and she finds no meaning in her life. Although she tries to reach John through various ways, nothing helps, and John is not responding.
One day, while Mary was sitting on the park bench crying, a childhood friend, Leon, spotted her and came up to say hi. They're very good friends as they grew up together, and Mary surely can trust Leon. So Mary confides in him and tells him the whole story.
Leon listens to her story and he says, "It's going to be all right, Mary. I'll help you." Good. So that's the story of Mary and John. Now we're going to ask you to take out your phones again and open up Slido, where we're going to ask you to rate the behavior of each of the characters. So you have the option.
Sorry.
It's okay. You have the option to rate them. One would be. Okay. Thank you.
It's a dramatic story, so
One would be if the character's behavior is completely unacceptable. 5 is if their behavior is completely acceptable. I'm again telling you that you have the QR codes also on your badges if you want to scan them easier.
Yep. I'm just going to open the present thing.
Still the question. Still the question.
Yeah, sorry, I'm changing it now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, 1 is the most unacceptable behavior, and 5 is the most acceptable.
Take your time to decide to go through it. If you want, discuss it with the person next to you. If they're
no discussions yet.
No discussions yet. Sorry.
It's okay. We should make those in groups. We should collect them in groups. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There's time. Everything. We're like almost 1 hour ahead. There's always only the feedback. If they have some free time.
Yeah, some free time
to rank them, yes.
1 is totally unacceptable, completely unacceptable, and 5 is behavior acceptable.
Personal vendetta time. Do you want to show the results? Or do you think it's going to affect?
Actually, I can see the results before. Yeah.
So what do we have to do?
If I don't hear Angered speak, then it's not, you didn't hear the story. It's what? Yeah. It's okay, I'm having the same thing in my head going on.
I'm not gonna sleep tonight. I've had most of this.
Can I have some? Is there something like that?
Yeah, there is. Oh, it's
Yes.
I'll make you
Should I make the groups?
Yeah.
Or skip? Yeah. So like this is like the overall result. And just
You might think this is like where you put the alcohol in. Here's some vodka grapefruit.
should we do this group? Group? Yes. Should we do the groups like in our row? Like 5-ish people.
Right here you have 6. Will the only
Let's show the results first.
Okay, have everyone like voted?
Yes?
Did you vote?
Okay.
Should I show the results?
Yes! Mary's mom is
Yes!
So, I'm just gonna give you 5 minutes in groups of 5, 6. You can just gather in proximity if you want to discuss a little bit and decide if you can consolidate your personal results in a group result. Can you agree with the people who's going to be with the most unacceptable and who's with the most acceptable behavior?
Okay, so that's one group there. Mia, Michaela, would you want to go with, or Clara, would you want to come in? Would you want to step in this group?
So if you can, together with your group, make a list that you agree on.
Chris is getting almost as close.
Huh?
Chris is getting very close. Did you see it? 4.10. Should I actually put the other slide on? This is not that important now, is it? Should we close the lights again? This one taking video. Okay, you can close. Bessie? Bessie? Did you?
Because
the mom should be like sheltered.
That's even more disgusting than the
No, someone using someone bad situation. No. Someone like that is basically
You're in a relationship, you cannot be separated from the other.
Hello. On what?
She's in first place.
Mary's mom. Yeah, I would also. What about John and Mary?
At least Mary is very fast, but she consulted John.
How are the agreements going? Is there an agreement in your group? No.
They're just pushing the opinion to me.
Just put.
I can see that.
What position is Mary?
Fourth, third, kind of.
I love Mother.
Leo is always going to be
Mother has a protest vote, which is a competitive.
why would we feel any place depending on like what you think about Joe, if his action was like acceptable. Yeah, but she's more global and if her mother taught her to do
However, John has he's in his fight to break up with her because that's what she's done. And she asks about why, and her answer was like, by the way,
yeah, but she doesn't know any better because so therefore I'm like, I'm not blaming her. I'm not blaming her for her action. She didn't know any better.
Instead of, well,
yeah, but when you cross paths without knowing it better, yeah, for next time you know, or trying to do better.
In the story, she apologized.
She learned it's a bad thing, it's like in the process because of reaction.
Oh, it's 16, she just cheat on somebody is a bad idea.
Like, such an idiot mom. I probably she didn't grow up in a cave.
She was also, she felt guilty also. She knew that she did something wrong. Like getting into it, she felt uncomfortable and she was like sidestepping a bit.
Like she had no idea. And if she knew that it was wrong, she should have asked John.
Yeah, but maybe some people. I've never seen this act of desperation.
If you're gonna do something, don't lie about it.
I've never seen it as an act of desperation. And just that's why but then again, she had the money.
She did.
That's why she sleeps. She said she has to fund the money.
Money for the fuel?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
No, she had money for something. She had money for and someone said like I'm like in the background stories I know that you won't pay. So that this one can go
There is also this sentence: after long and painful deliberations, Mary agrees and has sex with Chris. There was this process. She did take her time. I'm not like victim blaming Mary in this case. It's just, it's a very.
That's why they're kind of.
I also have a trouble putting Mary and John in the right order for me. But Mary's mom, though.
I think no, she's second. John should also be.
Who's first?
The one the actor basically already made her do it. His reaction is
Chris.
reasonable. Because
Not that. Chris. Yeah.
Because it's kind of using her.
And also very legal as well. Yeah, I mean that.
It's basically using someone who's in a desperate situation just to get laid.
Yeah.
And that's a no-no.
I understand why it would be the first.
They attacked me so much.
They've been through it a lot.
Because
Who's second place then?
John is John because somehow I made the connection of them both kind of fucked up, kind of bad. The mom just tried. Didn't do anything basically. Exactly, that's the worst kind of thing. But then I changed it to second. Oh damn, I changed it to second.
Bye, Desi. Thank you for coming today. Raya? Let's agree.
On our list. Who is the most unacceptable?
To me, it's Chris.
Here in the contact group, who's the most unacceptable? That's number one.
And then that's for Mary.
For Mary?
Yes.
Is the most unacceptable?
Yes.
It's really close, by the way.
I know it's 5.
How would Mary's behavior be the most unacceptable in the story?
Well, since it was me who introduced this idea, I would like to here into the audience. As Mary was the main character in this story, her decisions were, let's say, the engine of the story. She purposefully took the job in order to see John. She purposefully had this lifestyle where her day was school, work, home, school, work, home, as it was said in the story. She had the decision to accept this condition by Chris, I believe it was. So, like, you cannot be mad. I mean, you can be mad in your own decisions, but when you start doing something with the idea of doing something and then you purposefully change, then that's unacceptable in my opinion.
Sorry, I didn't understand your last sentence.
Well,
she took the shortcut.
Yeah, she took the shortcut basically. Yeah, thank you for summarizing. Yes, that in my opinion, this is unacceptable because all the other characters in the story, they follow their main line of what they were supposed to do in the story in a way. Like,
if we don't just see it as a story, but if it's something that happens in real life, because you said a lot of like she's the main character, they do their roles, but if it's real people, then Mary is a person. What? How about in John's life? Maybe John is his own main character. To take it away from a story and into like human level, Mary is just as main character as John is main character in his story, just as much as Chris is main character in his story. I don't know about this like pre-scripted thing that they're doing their roles.
Well, it's not mostly about the story. If we can say it's a case, she can be the victim of this case. Let's say that's why you put Mary's mom in first place, because for some people her actions might be not an action that, let's say, the parent would do to them, or that's not something that's accepted by most of the people. But I was trying to bring up this point that if I am a parent and I raise and educate my kid well, first 7 years of their life is I've invested a lot. I've tried to give a good example all the times, and then at the age of 16, I believe I can say to my kid, well, you can decide for yourself and take your own decision. I know that that's the correct thing, because my kid will eventually have to do this, and it doesn't matter the age. What happens if my kid never learns this, and at the age of 32 I'm still living with my parents and I still ask for consent, or I still ask for my mom's oh, should I wear this t-shirt today? Should I put another
I
shoe?
think this is a little bit of a different decision than should I wear this shirt?
Well, at 16, you might think that a 16-year-old person is very mature, but a 16-year-old brain is not even developed. Like, your brain doesn't fully form until you're 25. So at 16, you are a child, so you don't have the emotional maturity to make this kind of decisions that will follow you forever. You're at the beginning of your sexual development, your brain can't even process most of the emotions that you're feeling. So for you to be put in a position to decide as an adult, which you are not, to have sex for in exchange of something, it's not fair to put a child in that position. So both Chris and the mother are abusing. The mother is neglecting her child, Chris is abusing a child. So Mary should never be put in that position.
On the table of the discussion, she's in a very vulnerable position, Mary.
Sorry?
She's in a very vulnerable position. She misses her boyfriend.
Yes.
She doesn't have the resources. She's asking, I think, in the exercise, also that she asked for resources to get there, right? And she's the mother saying, no, we don't have the resources.
So now it's a matter of, what's the name of the guy? Mark? No,
Chris.
Chris is actually, it might be that he's using this vulnerability in order to get what he wants.
Well, yes, I agree with you. I also think he tries to use this vulnerability. However, at these 2 weeks of him waiting for, let's say, consent, he doesn't take any action. He just says, I'll be waiting for your response.
That's a pressure. It might be that it's a pressure there. I'll be waiting. And tick tock, tick tock, tick tock.
Time pressure. That's also a way to put pressure. You don't have
Time is
to put
passing.
a knife on somebody's throat.
I mean,
Pressure
only
is
chance
you have 2
to
weeks.
go there.
It's not like you have all your
No,
time.
it wasn't her only chance because she took the job in order to earn money, in order to go and visit John. Yes. So why take the shortcut? Why do this? I mean, you take it in the way of your brain is not developed yet, but put this in a scenario that this happens after 10 years and you're 26.
But I think there was a piece of information there when you say that she was happy because she had the money to pay for the gas. So this was her opportunity to go and see John in a normal way because she worked for it. But then Chris said, you can only have this seat in the car if you have sex with me. So he didn't ask for the money that she could pay actually. He asked for something else.
Yes.
And I think that's like she never changed her mind. She had the money. She could go, but of course probably she couldn't pay for an entire car or she couldn't drive herself. So
And it's like we are saying that boys will be boys. Of course he was trying, because this is what boys are doing. And then we are taking the shortcut of saying, yeah, but this is how boys are doing these things.
I think the question is who benefited from this, because you're seeing it, the way I understand it, you're seeing it as Mary benefited from this situation, but
everyone benefited in a way. Even John seeing Mary. I mean, at first place, he saw her without knowing the conditions of or the meanings of
But in addition, we're not saying that Mary is completely blameless. She is to blame for not asking John in the first place, hey John, do you think this is a good idea?
Yeah.
Because maybe then he would have said, okay, sure, go ahead, let's do this. But her mother is to blame for neglecting her kid and not advising her, because you're never too old to ask for advice. I'm 28 and I still ask my friends for advice. I still ask my mom for advice, and that's okay. And they might give me good advice, they might give me bad advice, but at least they're going to try. Whilst Mary's mom didn't even try to help her kid.
Well, from this angle, yes.
And I think, yeah, the question in the end is not did Mary do anything wrong, but whose behavior is the least acceptable. And in that way, it's kind of like coercion, it's more acceptable than taking the shortcut. Neglect is more acceptable than taking the shortcut. And at some point, we have to look like putting the age of Mary also into account, putting the situation that she's in, and seeing like which is more acceptable. Is it coercion or is it like the mistakes that Mary makes throughout?
Question.
Yes.
What's Liam doing in the story?
He's the mother.
Number 5.
Yeah. What is Liam doing in the story?
And I figured out, like I have been, I was sharing here that can we jump to or we're still in the conversation?
No, please go ahead.
No, it's just like I finally understood after all of these years and hearing this story and telling this story for hundreds of times. I was like, I kind of have a feeling that Leon is a shady guy, and I couldn't grasp like what is there, and then I understood. It's the way how he says what he says, because he says, listen, Mary, everything's gonna be okay. I'm gonna help you.
Yeah, it sounds
And
like he's
then today it really clicked that it's kind of a patronizing in a way, because I already assume that you will need my help, you will accept my help, instead of asking like, is there anything I can do for you? If yes, cool. If not, also cool. Yeah. So it's like, oh, finally, I had the answer. Like, what was there about Leah?
And it can be the beginning of another nightmare for Mary, because it might be, you know, this guy that is taking her because now she's, you know, more vulnerable than she was before, taking her to be trafficked somewhere in some other country, some other town.
Why do we have to
Yeah,
ruin Mary's life?
yeah, I kind of just have a small disagreement. It doesn't really have to be like that. It could be genuinely just kind.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, as I told you in the beginning, this activity is turmoil. It creates some turmoil, and it, like Madra says, it always creates some discussion. It always creates some kind of disagreement, and I really enjoy that. It's good to even think about it again after some time. And I've also gone through this activity many times, and every time it's still a fire that burns inside, and it's one of the most difficult activities for me to lead for some reason, because I always want to impose my opinion and say like, no, you're wrong. It's this person is wrong and this person is right, and it's a very interesting thing to consider. We also have how this would go through in the youth group. We also have a lot of reflection questions. There, I wanted to read them to you because we actually talked with Ali a lot about what this activity gives and how this represents the youth group methodology overall. So the reflection questions start with, what kind of emotions went through you while listening to the story? I'm sure there were many.
Confusion.
How realistic or unrealistic did you find this story? Was it realistic, or was it more of a story?
Yeah.
Given that everyone is shifting.
There is no innocent character in the story, is true. What power relationship did you see in the story? Why do you think they formed as they did? I'm just going to read the rest of the reflection questions because they are mostly not a 1-2 word answer, but they are all questions for discussions and debate. What would have been the best way to act for each other? Who else could Mary turn to for advice? What could John have done differently in every step of the story? What would it have been like if Mary and John were the opposite roles? Would Chris be prosecuted for having sex with a minor? This was a big discussion here. How would this happen? How could Leon help Mary? What else did you find striking or unusual or interesting about this story? What kind of gender roles or behavior patterns could you notice in the story which also reflects on the society you live in? So I think that just from this exercise, it could be a 2-hour discussion. And this covers so many topics. On one side, because it's such a story that, as we said, it's a realistic sounding story, so you feel more connected, you get more interested in it because it is real. It is something that you could see, that's something that your friend might be experiencing, something that in some form you might have experienced as a participant.
I mean, you can relate to any one of the characters. You have been someone that at least at some point in your life, or you will be.
Yeah.
Similar situation.
Yeah.
True.
So there is both the moment of reflecting alone, because in the beginning you give the rating alone, but there's also group work and group discussion. There is the time for the group to try to get to a common opinion, or to agree to disagree, or to reach that point together as a group. There is reflecting on emotions, there is reflecting on gender roles, on violence, on victim blaming, because a lot of the discussions whenever we've had Mary in the first place, then we've had a lot of discussions about victim blaming and why do we turn to Mary to see that her behavior is the least acceptable? Why do we, on the other side, like Mikhail said, why do we excuse coercion as boys will be boys? He tried, it's normal, why not? So there is a lot of very layered conversation that could start from any of the reflection questions about why the world works this way around us. How do we interact? There's the discussion of healthy and unhealthy behaviors, of healthy and unhealthy relationships. Like I heard in your group talking about, Magda, what did you say? I'm sorry, about the relationship that is, I tried to say it in Latvian and you said it in English. Codependent. About codependent relationships, about unhealthy relationships, and how Mary and John's love story maybe not so like romantic and clear cut as we're starting off in the beginning. And one thing that I really like is looking for solutions in the group. So there is the question of who could have Mary turned to? Could this have been stopped by their communication? What could John do? And putting ourselves in the different shoes of the characters and trying to look around and see the story of different sides, but also the solutions that weren't implemented, gets you prepared for these situations if you encounter them in real life. And finally, it gives you research opportunities, because when the question of legality opens up, there is the opportunity for the group to search for this information, to have some debate, but also be more educated about what rights they have, what protections they have as youth, as youngsters. So I see a lot of value in this activity as a representation of the youth group methodology overall. That the methodology provokes a lot of thought for oneself, and like the participants also said earlier, like knowing yourself more, knowing your emotions more, knowing other people more, understanding other people's opinions, working in groups, working separately, and all of these different aspects, I think, make the youth group methodology so special. So, yeah, do you have any questions about this activity overall? Is there something that stayed with you or something you want to share?
Resentment.
Resentment?
I cannot wrap my mind around it, and I think it's that's why I'm using this opportunity to throw this thought out here, and maybe we can find some ideas. What I see limiting in the story is that we are talking about heterosexual relationship, and so there, and also that, and in English we could use like gender neutral names, you know, like Alex and Charlie, and so people are, you know, making their own picture based on our own reality. So that's one thing, but we cannot do that in Latvian. I don't know about your languages. Yeah, we no as well. So I was thinking like how to make this kind of a story more, you know, inclusive, that more people can relate to these kind of relationships, and you know, see themselves in different shoes. And another aspect is that how to, or maybe that's a part of reflection question, is that there's no father figure. And it's kind of, in Latvia, it's very typical. If there is a single parent family, most likely it's a mother. So and honestly, very rarely someone really questions, but hey, where's Mary's father? Like, why she could also talk to her father? And it's so default, you know, that we are not asking these questions about fatherhood and about father figure in our lives. And so that's another point. Yeah, it's not, I don't know, it's a comment or what is it when I just
reflection.
Yeah. Yeah, so something what I think maybe could be added to the reflection part of it, or in the story somehow.
Yeah, these are good questions that you put. Opportunities for development.
Yeah.
For growth.
Yeah.
You just need to keep in mind that prosecuting John will be executed in a different way if we had the same sex or if we here discussed. So sex means a lot, so keep that in mind.
Maybe.
Chris.
Okay. If we try to do it gender neutral, and you said, for example, using colors instead of using names, we just have like a blank circle with colors that are not like traditionally gender associated, like neutral, like yellow or green or orange, and then we just give them, okay, this is orange, this is green, and this is Green's mom, so we don't know who's abusing who. Maybe you would get less victim blaming if you don't know if that Mary is a woman. And then we would, or maybe we could say, instead of Mary's mom, Blue's parent, and you don't know if it's a mom or a dad. And then some people might imagine that, because we also blame a lot the mother, because like, as a mother you should protect your child. If it was a dad, you might think, oh, what does he know? That's not know anything about feelings. But if you say this person's parent, then you might judge objectively about their responsibility as a parent, not as a mom or as a dad. Just use numbers or colors or something that cannot be associated to a gender or a sex.
Thank you.
Great. Anything else?
That was a great idea.
Yeah, the colors.
Well, we can just just two persons who love each other, then another person who just this doesn't matter.
I think just it would be just difficult to follow the story if it's just if you number them.
You
Yeah.
just give them numbers or colors or whatever.
Yeah.
person. We are all human beings.
I even got like a reflection question while you were saying about the dads don't know anything about feelings, and that my question is like, why? Like, why don't dads know anything about feelings? But yeah. Yes, that's all. So the solution to most of our problems, as we discussed in this conference, is youth groups.
Youth groups, yeah.
Just to have more youth groups.
Can I invite my dad to the next one?
Well, I actually had a question to Roxana about the parents. How did the parents receive this workshop? Were they happy afterwards? Did they?
Da, chiar au fost fericiți. Cumva le-am citit la început un poem scris de Kai Kuzma, în care copiii sunt asemănați cu pansămânțele,
where the children are associated with the flower.
Nu sunt asemănați cu trandafirii care au țepi să se protejeze sau cu lalelele.
Okay, the flower which doesn't have spikes like roses, for example, to protect themselves.
Sau precum lalelele care stau până trece iarna ca să împălzească.
Or like tulips which are protected underground until the winter is passing.
Și atunci ei trebuie să umble cu grijă și cu mare atenție cu pansămânțele, cu aceste flori delicate.
And so the parents have to treat them with a lot of care and delicacy, as these flowers are very delicate.
Și atunci, pornind de la acest poem, cumva am încercat să observ de la ei cum îi privesc pe copii și totodată să ne spună dacă au observat schimbări în comportamentul copiilor.
And so, starting with this poem, I try to ask them how they see children, how they see their children, and if they've noticed any change in their children's behavior from the beginning of the group until right now.
Și marea bucurie a fost să descoper că mulți dintre părinți au sesizat schimbări, au spus că copiii sunt mult mai comunicativi cu ei, că le împărtășesc mai multe probleme, ceea ce li se întâmplă în viața de zi cu zi.
And it was a joy to discover that most of the parents said that they noticed a change, that the children the youth are much more communicative. They're communicating more and they're telling them more from their everyday life. They're more open.
Deoarece până atunci răspunsul universal valabil, cum ești sau cum a fost ziua de astăzi, bine. Toată lumea răspundea bine.
Because until then the answer to the question how was your day was always fine. It's fine and nothing more. No.
Normal.
Yeah.
A fost o bucurie pentru mine să descoper că într-adevăr aceste ateliere au avut o finalitate în familiile lor.
So it was a joy to discover that these workshops had a positive impact, a concrete positive impact in their families. Yeah, that's great. With the poem and the flowers.
Yeah,
the flowers.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for doing that. It sounds very meaningful.
E un poem foarte frumos, sunt sigur că îl găsiți.
It's a very nice poem that you can find. It said
Kai Kuzma.
Kai Kuzma? How do you spell that?
Cu capa, K-A-Y-K-U-Z-M-A.
So the name of the writer of the poem, I can maybe write there. It's Kay Kuzma, so K-A-Y-K-U-Z-M-A.
I can do this.
În poem spune că întreabă pe Dumnezeu de ce ne-ai dat această
asking God why you give me this task.
Da, că panseluțele sunt mult prea fragile.
I don't know how panseluțe is in English.
Special flower. It's this delicate flower. It's a delicate flower.
Da, de ce nu i-a dat în îngrijire o floare care să poată să supraviețuiască și să se descurce singură, să crească?
Why didn't you give me to, take care of the flower that is more resilient than panseluța.
Și atunci își schimbă rugăciunea altfel și spune atunci dă-mi mâini delicate.
Then changes the prayer and then it's asking for give me delicate hands, give me this in order to be able to
Picioare delicate cu care să umblu. Just read the poem.
Don't spoil that. But we had a lot of discussions about this kind of approach where they invite also the parents, because we said, yeah, but what do we do about the the whole confidentiality thing? Because then what about the promise made to the adolescents that these things will remain in the group? And they managed to do it. I don't know how, because eventually, I mean, the adolescents asked, as it was in your case, they were asking, I want my mom to participate in such a workshop.
Wonderful. Well,
so
yes.
Well, you can sit where you are right now. I think the official part has ended. Now we're just gonna go for more of a
Party.
soon enough. We would really love your feedback, and I know when we send feedback forms to people, they never fill it in after the fact, after the event. So I would kindly ask you to scan another QR code.
Sadly, this one is not on your badges, it's just here.
Yeah.
It's a short feedback form, but we would be very grateful if it's anonymous, so you can be very honest, and we'll be
Just to understand how much we love QR codes, our like official T-shirt has a QR code on it. Our notebooks have QR codes on it. So yes, we would love your feedback. For now. But I have the other part ready. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
yeah. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.